the missing mile. Tom Delaney gripped the wheel of his 18-wheeler, the hum of the diesel engine a familiar comfort against the oppressive silence of Highway 47. At 50, he was a veteran trucker, his withered hands steady despite the late hour, 2:17 a.m., according to the dashboard clock. The highway stretched endlessly through dense pine forests, the kind that swallowed light and sound. Tom had run this route for years, hauling freight from one nowhere town to another, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, the stars obscured by a low, unnatural fog that clung to the road like a living thing. Tom's only company was the CB radio, usually alive with chatter from other drivers, but tonight it hissed with static, occasionally spitting out garbled words that sounded like prayers. He adjusted the dial, muttering to himself. Damn thing's acting up again. His thermos of coffee sat lukewarm in the cup holder, its bitter taste doing little to keep him alert. He glanced at the mile marker ahead, 344. Another hour, and he'd hit stop 47, the only gas station on this godforsaken stretch. He needed a break, maybe a chat with whoever was manning the counter tonight. As he passed mile 345, something caught his eye. The next marker read 347. He blinked, slowing the rig. No way, he muttered. Mile 346 was gone. He'd driven this road 100 times. He knew every marker, every curve. He checked his odometer, exactly 1 mile from 345 to 347. His GPS flickered, the screen frozen on a blank map, a single red dot pulsing beside his position. The radio screeched, a voice breaking through, "You're too close." Tom slammed the receiver down, heart pounding. Just tired, he told himself, but the forest seemed to shift, the pines leaning closer, their branches scraping the truck like fingernails. Tom's headlights cut through the fog, but the beams seemed dimmer, as if the darkness was eating them. He heard it then, a rhythmic thudding, like footsteps keeping pace with his truck. He glanced at the side mirror, expecting nothing, but a shadow darted through the trees, too fast, too large to be human. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. "Dear," he said aloud, but his voice trembled. The thudding grew louder, now on both sides, a pack of somethings running parallel to the rig. He floored the gas, the engine roaring, but the shadows kept up, their forms indistinct, flickering like smoke. The radio crackled again, this time with a low, guttural chant in a language Tom didn't recognize. The GPS beeped, the red dot now circling his position. He switched it off, but the screen stayed lit, the dot pulsing faster. A chill ran through him, not from the cold but from a presence, like eyes boring into his skull. He checked the mirrors again, nothing. But when he looked forward, a shape loomed in the road, tall and gaunt, its limbs unnaturally long. He swerved, tires squealing, and the figure vanished. The mile marker ahead read 347 again. He was stuck, circling the same stretch. Desperate, Tom pulled into stop 47 at mile 300, the neon sign flickering like a heartbeat. The gas station was a squat, decaying structure, its windows smeared with grime. The gravel lot crunched under his boots as he stepped out, the air thick with the smell of oil and something sharper, like burned hair. Inside, old Joe stood behind the counter, his milky eyes unblinking, a smile stretching too wide. "Lost, Tom?" he rasped, though Tom hadn't given his name. A logbook lay open on the counter, its pages yellowed, names scrawled in jagged script. Tom's name was there, dated yesterday. "That's not possible," he said, backing away. Joe slid a map across the counter, a red circle around mile 346. "You'll find it," Joe whispered. Back on the road, Tom couldn't shake the map's image. Mile 346, a place that didn't exist. The thudding returned, louder, now accompanied by low growls that vibrated through the truck's frame. He checked his mirrors obsessively, catching glimpses of eyes glinting in the forest, too many, too high off the ground. The radio chanted again, the words twisting into his name, Tom. "Come to us." He smashed the radio with his fist, but the sound continued, echoing in his head. At mile 345, the road changed. The asphalt shimmered, like heat rising from a desert, and the forest fell silent. The marker for 346 appeared, but it wasn't metal, it was carved from bone, etched with symbols that pulsed with a sickly green light. Tom's truck slowed, the engine stuttering, as if something was draining its power. The GPS flickered back on, showing a jagged tear in the map, labeled 346, the rift. The shadows in the woods coalesced into forms, hounds, but not hounds, their bodies made of smoke and bone, their jaws dripping black ichor. They circled the truck, their claws scraping the road. Tom floored it, but the truck barely moved, as if mired in tar. The hounds lunged, their teeth grazing the trailer, leaving claw marks that glowed faintly. A voice, not from the radio but inside his skull, growled, "You trespassed." Tom realized mile 346 wasn't a place, it was a boundary, a tier between worlds where these creatures, guardians of a forgotten curse, hunted those who crossed it. He remembered old Joe's map, the circle around 346. The station was the key, luring him here. Tom turned back, the hound's growls fading as he approached stop 47 again. The station looked different, walls pulsed like flesh, the neon sign spelling Tom in flickering letters. Inside, old Joe was gone, replaced by a mirror where the counter had been. Tom's reflection stared back, but his eyes were wrong, black, hollow, like the hound's. The logbook was open to a new page, his name written in blood, beside a drawing of the bone marker. He found a trapdoor behind the counter, leading to a basement that shouldn't exist. The air was thick, the walls slick with a substance that moved. At the center was a stone altar, carved with the same symbols as the bone marker. A voice echoed, "You opened the rift." Tom realized Highway 47 was built over a sacred site, desecrated by a cult centuries ago. The hounds were its guardians, and mile 346 was their hunting ground, activated when drivers like Tom passed through. Stop 47 was the cult's altar, a sentient trap that fed the rift with souls. Tom knew he had to destroy the altar. He doused it with gasoline from the pumps, the liquid hissing as it touched the stone. The hounds' howls grew deafening, their forms clawing at the basement walls. He lit a match, and the altar erupted in flames, the station shaking. He ran, the hounds pursuing, their claws tearing at his rig as he sped away. The bone marker at 346 grumbled as he passed, the rift closing with a scream that shattered his windows. Dawn broke, and Tom reached mile 348, the hounds gone. But his mirrors showed claw marks on his face, glowing faintly. Stop 47 was behind him, but the logbook's weight lingered in his mind. He'd escaped the rift, but the highway had marked him. At the next town, he checked his map. Mile 346 was gone again, but his name was still in the logbook, waiting. The looping station. Jack Harper's 18-wheeler rumbled down Highway 47, its headlights slicing through the dense fog that clung to the asphalt. At 42, Jack was a weathered trucker, his life a cycle of long hauls and lonely nights, haunted by the loss of his son, Ethan, who died in a car accident 2 years ago. It was 12:47 a.m. on May 24, 2025, the dashboard clock glowing faintly, the only sound the engine's steady drone and the occasional crackle of his CB radio, silent for hours. Highway 47 was a desolate stretch, its pine forests looming like silent sentinels, the air thick with an unnatural chill. Jack was hauling furniture, tables and chairs, nothing unusual. His GPS flickered, the map glitching with jagged lines, but he relied on the mile markers, 298, 299. At mile 300, a neon sign pierced the fog, stop 47, the only gas station for miles. Jack needed coffee and a break from the road's oppressive weight. He pulled into the gravel lot, tires crunching, and stepped out, the air sharp with oil and a faint, coppery tang, like blood. The station was a relic, peeling paint, rusted pumps, the neon sign buzzing erratically. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast a sickly green glow, the air stale. Behind the counter stood a man, his name tag reading Old Joe, his eyes milky white, unblinking, his face frozen in a too wide smile. Jack nodded uneasily, grabbing a styrofoam cup of coffee that smelled of ash. "Quiet night," he said, but Joe just stared, his smile stretching, revealing jagged black teeth. Jack paid and hurried out, the bell above the door jingling like a warning, but as he reached his rig, he frowned. A figure stood in the lot, a boy, Ethan's age, watching him. When Jack blinked, the figure was gone. Jack drove on, the coffee bitter, metallic, the highway seeming to twist. His radio crackled, "You're back, Jack." He hadn't given his name. The mile markers ticked by, 301, 302, but after an hour, he saw it again, mile 300, and the neon sign of stop 47. His heart sank. He'd driven straight, no turns. The GPS was frozen at mile 300, a red dot pulsing over his position. He checked his odometer, 60 miles, yet here was the station, unchanged, the same flickering S in the sign. He pulled in, pulse racing, the lot identical, down to the gravel's crunch. Old Joe was there, same smile, same milky eyes. "Back so soon, Jack?" he rasped. The logbook on the counter was open, Jack's name scrawled in red ink, dated years ago, 1975, 1923, impossible. A photo beside it showed Jack entering stop 47, dated yesterday, though he'd never stopped here before. "What's going on?" Jack demanded, but Joe pointed to the door. "Keep driving," he said, his voice echoing in Jack's skull. Jack sped away, the station fading into fog, but the highway looped again, mile 300, stop 47, the neon sign now flickering Jack. The pumps dripped a dark, viscous liquid, pooling like blood. Old Joe stood outside, motionless, his smile wider. Jack's memories blurred, Ethan's laugh, his funeral, replaced by visions of a crash, his rig in flames. The station was alive, Jack realized, a sentient trap pulling him into a time loop, erasing his past to claim him. Each loop warped the station, walls pulsed like flesh, the coffee turned to sludge, and Old Joe's voice grew louder, "Stay with us." Jack found Ethan's toy car, lost in the accident, on the counter, its paint chipped, glowing faintly. The logbook listed other drivers, their names fading, their faces in photos like Old Joe's, milky-eyed, trapped. At mile 300, the station reappeared, now grotesque, its windows bleeding black ooze, the neon sign screaming his name. Jack found a trapdoor behind the counter, leading to a basement that shouldn't exist. The air was thick, the walls carved with symbols that pulsed red, like heartbeats. At the center was an altar, stone and bone, etched with Jack's name. A voice, not Joe's but Ethan's, whispered, "You left me." The station was a prison, built over a cult's sacrificial ground, feeding on drivers' grief to bind their souls. Jack's guilt over Ethan's death was its key, the loops a test to break him. Jack's body weakened, his hands graying, his eyes dimming. The station's pull grew stronger, Ethan's voice accusing, "Stay with me." Jack tore the logbook, the pages burning his hands, the station shaking. He doused the altar with gasoline, the flames roaring, Old Joe's scream echoing. The loops tightened, the station reappearing faster, its walls closing in. Jack saw Ethan in the lot, his face pale, eyes milky, beckoning. He crashed his rig into the station, the altar shattering, the neon sign exploding. The highway stretched ahead, the loops broken, but Jack's reflection was wrong, eyes milky, like Joe's. The logbook's page, in his pocket, showed Ethan's name, not his, fading. Jack drove, the highway endless, the station gone, But Ethan's toy car sat on the passenger seat, glowing. His memories of Ethan were faint, his guilt heavier. Stop 47 had let him go, but the curse lingered, his soul tethered to the road. He saw mile 300 ahead, the neon sign flickering, waiting, the girl without a reflection. Sarah Mitchell's delivery van rattled down Highway 47, its tires humming against the cracked asphalt. At 34, Sarah was a seasoned courier, her life a blur of late-night runs and cheap coffee, driven by the need to support her aging mother. It was 1:13 a.m. on May 24, 2025, the dashboard clock glowing faintly, the only light in the cab besides her headlights cutting through the dense fog. Highway 47 was a desolate stretch, flanked by towering pines that seemed to lean inward, their branches scraping the van like skeletal fingers. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive, broken only by the occasional crackle of her CB radio, which had been silent for hours. Sarah's cargo was mundane, boxes of canned goods for a small-town grocer. Her GPS flickered, the signal dropping in and out, but she trusted the mile markers to guide her. At mile 200, a figure emerged in the glow of her headlights, a young woman in a soaked white dress, her dark hair plastered to her pale face, thumb raised in a plea for a ride. Sarah hesitated. Picking up hitchhikers was risky, but the girl looked frail, shivering in the cold rain. She pulled over, gravel crunching, and rolled down the window. "Where you headed?" Sarah asked. The girl said nothing, climbing into the back seat with slow, deliberate movements, her eyes fixed forward. Sarah glanced at the rearview mirror, and froze. The seat was empty. Her heart lurched. She whipped around, and there was the girl, sitting silently, her lips curved in a faint, unsettling smile. "Just keep driving," the girl whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. Sarah's skin pickled. The vent heater was on, but the air turned icy, her breath visible. She checked the mirror again, still empty. "What's your name?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The girl's smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp, too pale. "You'll know soon," she said, pointing at the road. Sarah drove, her pulse racing, telling herself it was fatigue, a trick of the light. But the girl's presence was a weight, pressing on her chest, making the cab feel smaller. The radio crackled, unprompted, spitting static that formed words, "She's waiting." Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. The voice wasn't the girl's, it was her mother's, who died a year ago in a hospital bed, her last words a plea for Sarah to stay. "How do you know her?" Sarah demanded, turning back. The girl was closer now, her face inches from the front seat, her eyes black pits. "She sent me," the girl hissed, her breath cold on Sarah's neck. Sarah's vision blurred, memories of her mother's death surfacing, her guilt for not being there, for choosing work over family. The girl's smile grew, as if feeding on the pain. At mile 210, the mirror showed the empty seat, but Sarah felt a cold hand brush her arm, frost creeping up her skin. She slammed on the brakes, the van skidding. "Get out," she shouted, but the girl was gone, the back seat empty, a wet handprint glistening on the window. Desperate, Sarah pulled into stop 47 at mile 300, the gas station's neon sign flickering like a dying pulse. The lot was empty, the air thick with oil and a sickly sweet decay. Inside, old Joe stood behind the counter, his milky eyes unblinking, a smile stretching too wide. "Got company, Sarah?" he asked, though she hadn't spoken. A logbook lay open, its pages brittle, her name scrawled in red ink beside a faded photo of the girl, dated 1968, with Margaret M., her mother's initials. Sarah's knees buckled. "What is this?" she demanded. Joe's smile widened, revealing black teeth. "Check your mirrors," he said, pointing to the door. Back in the van, Sarah's mirrors were wrong, her reflection pale, her eyes darkening, as if draining. The girl reappeared, now in the passenger seat, her touch freezing Sarah's arm, frost spreading like veins. "Drive to her," the girl whispered, her voice now her mother's, laced with accusation. The highway twisted, the pines closing in, their branches clawing the roof. Sarah's memories blurred, her mother's laugh, their last fight, replaced by visions of a crash, a car in flames, her mother screaming. The girl's smile was a predator's, her eyes swallowing light. At stop 47 again, the station's walls pulsed, the neon sign spelling Sarah. The logbook showed her name repeated, each entry more distorted, as if her identity was unraveling. Sarah found a trapdoor behind the counter, leading to a basement that smelled of blood and ash. The walls were slick, carved with symbols that glowed faintly. At the center was a mirror, showing not Sarah but the girl, her face her mother's, then her own, twisted with hunger. You left her, the girl said. Now you're mine. The girl was a mirror wraith, a spirit that existed only in direct sight, feeding on guilt to manifest. Highway 47 was its hunting ground, Stop 47 its anchor, using mirrors to track victims. Sarah's guilt over her mother's death was its fate, the logbook binding her soul. Sarah's body weakened, her skin graying, her hair falling out. The wraith's touch spread, her memories fading, her childhood, her name. She smashed the mirror, the shards cutting her hands, but the wraith's laughter echoed. The logbook burned her fingers, her name glowing red. She tore its pages, the station shaking, the wraith lunging, its form shifting, her mother, then herself. Sarah doused the basement with gasoline, the flames roaring, but the station remained, the wraith's eyes in every reflection. Sarah crashed her van into Stop 47, the mirror shattering, the wraith dissolving. She drove, the highway stretching, but her reflection was gone, her eyes hollow. The logbook's page, in her pocket, showed her name fading. The wraith's whisper lingered, "You're still mine." Sarah escaped, but the guilt remained, her soul tethered to Highway 47. # cold passenger. Mike Sullivan's refrigerated truck rumbled down Highway 47, the engine's drone a steady pulse against the oppressive silence of the night. At 35, Mike was a seasoned driver, hauling frozen goods across state lines to pay off mounting debts from a failed business. The dashboard clock read 2:03 a.m., November 23, 2025, and the air outside was bitter, the fog coiling around the pines like ghostly fingers. Highway 47 was a lonely stretch, its mile markers faded, its curves treacherous in the dark. Mike's only companions were a thermos of black coffee and a crackling CB radio that hadn't picked up a signal in hours. Tonight's cargo was routine, pallets of frozen beef, destined for a warehouse 200 miles away. The reefer unit hummed, keeping the trailer at a steady -10 degrees Fahrenheit. Mike checked the temperature gauge, satisfied, but a prickle of unease ran down his spine. The highway felt alive, watching him, its silence heavier than usual. He shook it off, blaming fatigue, and sipped his coffee, its warmth a fleeting comfort against the chill seeping through the cab. At mile 295, a faint sound broke the monotony, a soft, rhythmic tapping from the trailer. Mike frowned, adjusting his rear-view mirror. The trailer was sealed, the cargo strapped tight. Rattling pipes, he muttered, but the tapping grew louder, deliberate, like knuckles rapping on metal. He turned off the radio, straining to listen. The tapping stopped, replaced by a whisper, faint but clear, "It's cold. Open the door." Mike's heart lurched. The voice was human, desperate, coming from inside the trailer. But his manifest listed only me, no passengers, no stowaways. Mike pulled over, the gravel shoulder crunching under his tires. The fog was thicker now, swallowing his headlights. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped out, the air biting his skin, carrying a faint metallic scent. The trailer's rear doors were locked, the seal intact. He pressed his ear to the cold metal, holding his breath. Silence. Then, a sharp knock, inches from his face, followed by the same whisper, "Let me out. It's so cold." Mike stumbled back, his flashlight beam shaking. He checked the lock, still secure. "No way," he said, voice trembling. "Just the wind." Back in the cab, he cranked the heater, but the chill deepened, his breath visible in the air. The temperature gauge flickered, dropping to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, then -30 degrees Fahrenheit, impossible for his rigged settings. The radio crackled. Unprompted, Mike opened the door. His name, spoken in that same raspy whisper, sent a jolt of panic through him. He slammed the radio off, but the voice echoed in his head, growing louder, more insistent. "I'm freezing. Help me." Desperate for a break, Mike pulled into stop 47 at mile 300, the gas station's neon sign flickering like a dying pulse. The lot was empty, the air thick with the smell of oil and something rancid, like spoiled meat. Inside, old Joe stood behind the counter, his milky eyes unblinking, a smile stretching too wide. "Cold night, Mike," he said, though Mike hadn't given his name. A logbook lay open, its pages yellow, names scrawled in jagged ink. Mike's name was there, dated yesterday, beside a note, "Cargo, 1 soul." He backed away, coffee forgotten. "What's this place?" he demanded. Joe's smile widened, revealing black teeth. "Check your trailer," he whispered. Mike's flashlight beam danced across the trailer's rear doors, his hands trembling as he broke the seal. The lock clicked, and he swung the doors open, bracing for the worst. The trailer was packed with frozen beef, the slabs hanging from hooks, glistening under the light. No stowaways, no bodies, just meat. But the air was colder than it should be, the frost creeping up his arms, numbing his fingers. He slammed the doors shut, but as they closed, he saw it. Scratch marks on the inner walls, forming words, "Your necks." Back in the cab, the temperature gauge read -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and frost coated the windshield from the inside. The radio hissed, "Open the door. I'm so cold." Mike's breath came in shallow gasps, his skin prickling as if something was brushing against it. He checked the side mirrors, nothing outside, but inside the cab, a shadow moved, fleeting, in the corner of his eye. He spun around, finding only empty seats, but the air grew heavier, the cold sinking into his bones. At mile 310, the tapping resumed, now a frantic pounding, accompanied by a scream, "Let me out." Mike's hands shook as he drove, the voice growing louder, more human, a woman's voice, pleading, then snarling. The trailer's walls groaned, as if something was clawing to escape. He glanced at the manifest again, noticing a discrepancy. The weight was 200 pounds heavier than listed. "No," he whispered, realizing something was in there, something alive, or not. Mike stopped at stop 47 again, the station's walls pulsing faintly, the neon sign spelling Mike in flickering letters. Old Joe was gone, but the logbook was open, a new page showing a drawing of a woman, her face gaunt, her eyes hollow, frost trimming her lips. The note beside it read, "She's with you." Mike's stomach churned. He found a trapdoor behind the counter, leading to a basement that smelled of blood and ice. The walls were slick, carved with symbols that glowed blue, like frozen veins. At the center was a metal box, frosted over, vibrating with a low hum. Inside, he found a frozen hand, its fingers curled, clutching a locket with his initials. The voice came again, not from the radio but from the air itself, "You left me to freeze." Mike remembered the story from years ago, a worker trapped in a reefer unit, frozen alive during a delivery he'd overseen. He'd thought it was an accident, but the locket suggested otherwise. The cold passenger was her, a vengeful spirit bound to the trailer, using the cold to claim him. Stop 47 was her anchor, amplifying her power, drawing Mike into her icy grasp. Mike's body was failing, his fingers blue, his breath shallow, as if the cold was consuming him from within. The spirit's touch spread, frost creeping up his arms, his vision blurring. He returned to the trailer, finding the scratch marks now forming a map of Highway 47, with mile 300 circled. The spirit wanted him to stay, to join her in the cold. He doused the trailer with gasoline, the liquid freezing midair, and lit a match. The flames roared, but the trailer remained, the spirit's laughter echoing. In a final act, Mike drove into Stop 47, crashing through the station's walls. The basement exploded in blue light, the metal box shattering. The spirit screamed, her form dissolving into frost, but the cold lingered in Mike's bones. He escaped, the highway stretching ahead, but his reflection in the mirror was wrong, pale, frosted, with eyes like hers. The trailer was empty, but the locket sat on the passenger seat, pulsing with cold. The doppelganger driver. Alex Reed's rig thundered down Highway 47, the asphalt a endless black scar cutting through dense pine forests. At 28, he was a rookie trucker, ambitious but anxious, his hands still unsteady on long night hauls. It was 2:47 a.m. on May 23, 2025, and the dashboard clock glowed faintly, the only light in the cab besides his headlights piercing the fog. Highway 47 was notorious, too quiet, too dark, with whispers of strange happenings among drivers. Alex dismissed them as hazing for newbies, but tonight, the air felt thick, the pines leaning inward as if watching. He was hauling auto parts, a routine run, but the CB radio had been silent for hours, spitting only static that sounded like distant sobs. His GPS flickered, the map glitching with jagged lines. Alex adjusted his rear-view mirror, catching a glimpse of his tired eyes, green, bloodshot, but his own. He sipped cold coffee, its bitterness grounding him, and focused on the mile markers, 392, 393. The road was empty, no other rigs in sight, which made the sudden flash of headlights in the opposite lane jarring. A truck identical to his, a red Kenworth, same dented fender, roared past. Alex's heart skipped as he saw the driver, himself, but wrong. The other Alex's face was pale, expressionless, blood streaming from his eyes like tears. The doppelganger's gaze locked onto him, unblinking, as the truck vanished into the fog. Alex slammed on the brakes, his rig skidding. No way, he gasped, checking the mirrors. Nothing. His pulse raced, his hands trembling. The radio crackled, "You're too late, Alex." His name, spoken in his own voice, chilled him to the bone. Alex drove on, the highway seeming to twist, the pines closing in. His mirrors felt wrong. Every glance showed a flicker of movement, a shadow that wasn't there when he turned. At mile 395, the doppelganger's truck appeared again, this time in his lane, headlights blinding. He swerved, tires screeching, and the truck vanished, but his side mirror showed it trailing him, the bloody-eyed Alex staring. "Just tired," he muttered, but his voice shook. The radio hissed, "You can't outrun yourself." Desperate for a break, Alex pulled into Stop 47 at mile 300, the gas station's neon sign flickering like a dying pulse. The lot was empty, the air heavy with the smell of oil and something sour, like blood. Inside, the station was a relic, faded linoleum, dusty shelves, and old Joe behind the counter, his milky eyes unblinking. "Seen yourself lately, Alex?" Joe rasped, though Alex hadn't spoken. A logbook lay open, its pages yellowed, Alex's name scrawled in red ink, dated a week from now. Beside it, a Polaroid showed his rig, the doppelganger at the wheel, blood dripping onto the dashboard. "Check your mirrors," Joe said, his smile revealing jagged black teeth. Alex stumbled back to his truck, his reflection in the side mirror wrong, pale, eyes bleeding. He smashed the mirror, glass shattering, but the image lingered in his mind. The radio crackled, "I'm you, Alex. I'm better." He floored the gas, the station fading into fog, but the doppelganger's truck reappeared, now beside him, matching his speed. The other Alex turned, his bloody eyes gleaming, and raised a hand, pointing at him. The highway became a nightmare, the doppelganger struck appearing at every turn, its headlights pulsing like a heartbeat. Alex's memories blurred, his childhood, his first drive, fading as if being rewritten. At mile 400, the doppelganger truck pulled ahead, stopping across the road. Alex braked, heart pounding, as the other Alex stepped out, his movements jerky, like a puppet. Blood pooled at his feet, his voice echoing, "This is my road now." Alex sped past, but the doppelganger was in his cab, a cold hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Let me drive." Alex stopped at stop 47 again, the station's walls pulsing, the neon sign spelling Alex in flickering letters. Old Joe was gone, but the logbook was open, a new page showing a drawing of the doppelganger, its face his own, blood streaming. A trapdoor behind the counter led to a basement, its walls slick with black cubes, carved with symbols that glowed red. At the center was a mirror, showing not Alex but the doppelganger, now whole, smiling with his face. "You're the shadow now," it said, its voice his own. Alex realized the doppelganger was his future self, killed on Highway 47 in a crash yet to happen, bound to the road by a curse. Stop 47 was the curse's anchor, creating doubles to replace the living, trapping their souls. The mirror showed his death, a crash at mile 400, flames, his rig consumed. The doppelganger was trying to take his place, to live again. Alex's body weakened, his hands pale, his eyes starting to bleed. He found a ledger in the basement, its pages listing drivers replaced by their doubles, their names erased. Alex tore out his page, the station shaking, the doppelganger's laughter echoing. He doused the mirror with gasoline, the flames roaring, but the station remained, the doppelganger stepping through the fire, its face now fully his. "You can't burn me," it said, reaching for him. Alex fled, driving toward mile 400, the doppelganger struck in pursuit. His mirrors showed only its face, blood dripping. He swerved to avoid the crash site, the road twisting, the pines screaming. At stop 47, he crashed into the station, the mirror shattering. The doppelganger dissolved, but Alex's reflection was gone. He drove on, the highway stretching, but his eyes bled faintly, his hands cold. The logbook's page was in his pocket, his name fading, the doppelganger's laugh echoing. Hash whispers in the black box. Emma Carter's rig roared down Highway 47, the asphalt a black ribbon slicing through endless pine forests. At 32, she was a rare breed, a tech-savvy trucker who traded a desk job for the open road. Her dashboard was a mini command center, GPS, CB radio, and a high-end dash cam she rigged to record every mile. The camera was her safety net, capturing proof of her routes in case of accidents or disputes. Tonight, at 1:47 a.m., the clock glowed green, and the air outside was thick with fog, muffling the world beyond her headlights. Highway 47 was notorious among drivers, too quiet, too isolated, with stories of strange happenings that Emma dismissed as road-weary nonsense. She preferred data to ghost stories, her earbuds piping a true crime podcast to keep her awake. But tonight, the podcast cut out, replaced by static that pulsed like a heartbeat. She tapped the radio, frowning. "Cheap piece of junk," she muttered, switching it off. The silence was worse, heavy and expectant, broken only by the hum of her engine. At mile 290, she noticed the GPS glitching, the screen flickering with random coordinates. The dashcam's red light blinked steadily, recording as always. Emma adjusted her rear-view mirror, catching a glimpse of the empty trailer behind her. She was hauling electronics, laptops, no perishables, no surprises. Yet a chill crept up her spine, as if someone was watching from the shadows. She shook it off, focusing on the road, but the mile markers seemed off, their numbers faded, almost moving in the fog. An hour later, Emma's rig felt sluggish, the engine stuttering despite a recent tune-up. The dashcam beeped, its screen showing a low battery warning, though it was hardwired to the truck's power. She tapped it, annoyed, and the screen flickered, briefly displaying a distorted image, not the road, but a dark, cramped space, like a closet. She blinked, and the road reappeared. "Great, now the camera's glitching," she said, her voice too loud in the cabin. The CB radio crackled, unprompted. A voice, faint and raspy, whispered, "Don't stop. It's here." Emma frowned. She'd been alone all night, the radio off. She grabbed the mic, her hands trembling. "Who's this? Identify yourself." No response, just static, then the same voice, closer, "Emma. It sees you." Her name hung in the air, chilling her to the bone. She ripped the earbuds out, her podcast long silent, and checked the dashcam. The footage was normal, Highway 47, fog, pine, but the audio track was wrong. Amid the engine's hum, a voice whispered her name, over and over. Emma's heart raced. She wasn't prone to panic, but this felt personal, invasive. She pulled into stop 47 at mile 300, the gas station's neon sign flickering like a dying star. The lot was empty, the air thick with the scent of oil and something sweeter, like decay. Inside, the station was a time capsule, faded linoleum, dusty shelves, and a counter manned by old Joe, his milky eyes unblinking. "Trouble, Emma?" he asked, his voice a low rasp, as if he'd heard the whispers too. She hadn't told him her name. Emma grabbed the coffee, its taste metallic, and noticed a logbook on the counter, its pages brittle, names scrawled in jagged ink. Her name was there, dated yesterday, though she'd never stopped here before. "What is this?" she demanded, but old Joe just smiled, his teeth stained black. "Check your camera," he said, pointing to a rig. "It sees more than you." Back in the truck, Emma plugged the dash cam into her laptop, her hands shaking. The footage showed Highway 47, but at 1:47 a.m., a figure appeared in the passenger seat, a silhouette, featureless, its head tilted toward her. The audio was worse. "Emma. It's cold. Let me in." She'd been alone. She rewound, pausing on the figure. Its edges flickered, like static, and its head turned, revealing hollow sockets where eyes should be. The screen glitched, and the figure was gone, but the audio looped. "Emma. Emma." She slammed the laptop shut, her breath shallow. The cabin was freezing, her breath visible despite the heater. The dashcam's red light blinked, though it was unplugged. She yanked the battery, but the light stayed on, pulsing. A shadow moved in the side mirror, not outside, but inside the cab, behind her. She spun around, nothing. The radio crackled. "You can't turn it off." Emma drove, the whispers growing louder, now in her head, not the radio. "It's here. It's always been here." She tried to focus on the road, but the dashcam screen flickered, showing not the highway but a dark room, walls slick with black coots, and a figure writing in a book. The figure looked up, its hollow eyes meeting hers through the screen. She screamed, swerving, and the truck shuddered, the engine puffing. At mile 310, the whispers became a chant, naming her childhood fears, the dark, the closet, her father's death. Emma's memories blurred, replaced by images of a crash she didn't remember, a truck like hers, flames, a figure trapped inside. She stopped at stop 47 again, the station's walls pulsing, the neon sign spelling Emma in flickering letters. Old Joe was gone, but the logbook was open, her name written repeatedly, each entry more distorted, as if her identity was unraveling. She found a trapdoor behind the counter, leading to a basement. The air was thick, the walls carved with symbols that glowed faintly. At the center was a book, identical to the logbook, but bound in something like skin. The figure from the dashcam stood beside it, writing with a quill that dripped black. "You're mine now," it said, its voice the same as the whispers. Emma realized it was a shadow scribe, a spirit that recorded lines to feed a curse, stealing identities through the dashcam's lens. Emma's memories were slipping, her mother's face, her first job, gone. The scribe was rewriting her, its hollow eyes gleaming. She grabbed the book, its pages burning her hands, and tore them out. The scribe lunged, its touch erasing more of her past. She remembered the dashcam, its anchor. She ran to the truck, the scribe's whispers deafening, "You're nothing without me." She smashed the dashcam, but the screen stayed lit, showing the scribe's face, now hers, distorted. Gasoline from the pump soaked the rig, and she lit a match, the flames engulfing the truck. The scribe screamed, its form dissolving, but the station remained, untouched. Emma drove a spare rig from the lot, the highway stretching ahead. The whispers were gone, but her reflection in the mirror was wrong, hollow eyes, like the scribe's.